Politics. You recognize. The Americans, right, we would have the White House, right, and so forth. Our big frustrations, right, with politicians are, on the one hand, the great amount of corruption, right, that goes on in politics, right. If you study United States congressmen, for example, the average income that they have when they go in office versus the amount of income that they have when they leave office, there's almost not a single one of them that doesn't become a multimillionaire, right, as a result of being in Congress. There's a well-oiled machine, and the United States is not alone, and the United States is not even the worst example of this, of politics being the route to economic success for you as an individual. So it's modern predation. We're not adding value to the process. We're not creating value. We're not innovating economically. Instead, we're finding ways to divert other people's wealth into our own pocket. Now, in cultures in which people understand that money has to be made, that the people who make the money should be able to keep it, and that we should respect people who have made their money, that kind of political corruption is much less tolerated. It's only in cultures where we don't have a good understanding of entrepreneurship, of what it is to create wealth, what it is to make wealth, that people are more tolerant, even though they're still irritated at the amount of political corruption that goes on. Because from that perspective, that's just how things go, right? Politicians are just doing what everybody else is doing. They're just in a better position to do it than most people, right, and so on. So I think building respect for entrepreneurship, for making your own way in the world, for having your own ideas, for adding value, to the extent that we can get people to believe that, right, and that becomes our cultural attribute, the political corruption will be increasingly on the defensive, and I think that's an important tool, right, to achieve. The other side of the debate is, right, that politicians, sometimes sincerely, sometimes not sincerely, will see themselves as being in a paternal role. They have the millions of pesos and the millions of dollars, and they dispense it, right, to the people whom they think they need. So I am the great man, or I am the great woman, and you are the person who then is being done a favor by me, and you should be grateful to me. But again, we are just elevating, right, the old hierarchical society. We are creating people, right, who are dependent, right, upon the system, and we are creating people with certain kinds of complexes about how wonderful they are because they're giving other people's money to these different people, right, and so forth. So to the extent that we think that paternalistic, right, charity, right, that governments like to engage in is noble and dignified, right, as it was historically, and that is more dignified than working for your money, earning your money through voluntary means in the market. To the extent that that cultural attitude does not change, right, we're going to be in the same situation. So I think celebrating, right, people who make money and respecting them for being able to do so is going to people will take more pride in earning, right, money rather than taking handouts in various ways, and that will go a long way toward helping reform the political process. Now, I've said negative things about politicians. There are lots of great politicians, right, in every tradition, but the point seems to be that we need to grow some more, right, for our current generation. We seem only to have a lot of historical examples. All right, business ethics, which is a field that I write significantly in. If we think of entrepreneurship, I think it can do a lot toward doing business ethics. One of the things that often happens to me when I tell people that I do work in business ethics is they will give that kind of cynical laugh, right? Ha ha ha, isn't business ethics a contradiction in terms, right? And so that is the traditional attitude that what goes on in business really is predation, right? That profit is expropriating other people's wealth, or that competition brings out dog eat dog, right, struggle, right, against other people. Entrepreneurship, to the extent we understand what people like Steve Jobs do, what Henry Ford did, and so forth, and people, as part of their cultural education, learn about the accomplishments of these individuals, come to understand that business is about creating value, right, more than it is about predation. It's easy to be cynical about all of the dishonest business practices that go on, but for every dishonest business practice, there are thousands and thousands of win-win transactions that go on on a regular basis. And that point needs to be hammered home. We need to drive home the point that the distinction is not between people who are rich and people who are poor, that class warfare rhetoric that goes on, driven by an understanding of business, but among people who are rich, there are some people who made their money by adding value, and there are some people who got money. They didn't make money, they got money through various predatory fashion. We have to make that distinction very clear, and that can help the cultural evolution right away from understanding business. All right. An example I think here about is the point of integrity. Steve Jobs said it well. I wanted to read the quote a little bit here. But if you think not about a business professional for a moment, if you think about an artist, right? And entrepreneurs are like artists. They are creating something new. And people understand the idea of artistic integrity because if you are an individual artist, this is my idea. Right? This is my artwork that I made, and built into that is a kind of integrity. Because it's my idea, I wanted to make it the best, the most beautiful, the most significant, the most sublime, whatever my artistic concept is, that I can possibly make it. So the idea of being an individual creator, right, in the artistic field brings with it an integrity. And that phenomenon also happens in the business world among the entrepreneurs. Young people, for example, when they get their first job and they get a paycheck, feel a pride that they did not experience when their moms and their dads gave them an allowance. Your mom or dad gives you an allowance, you like the money, right? But you earn the money, right? There's an integrity, right, that is built into it, and you like that. If we can, and that is universal to all people. If we make that's an important point, that's an ethical point. Keep doing that. Keep earning money, right? And take pride in the fact that you have earned money. It will do so. Now, Steve Jobs is in the high-tech, right, industry field, but he makes this integrity point beautifully here. He's talking using a carpenter as an analogy here. When you're a carpenter making a beautiful chest of drawers, you're not going to use a piece of plywood on the back, even though it faces the wall and nobody will ever see it. You know it's there. So you're going to use a beautiful piece of wood on the back. For you to sleep well at night, the aesthetic, the quality has to be carried all the way through. Now, that's beautiful, and for those of us who are committed to quality, creating things, our vision, we want it to be beautiful. Entrepreneurs know that best. I think young people, when they start to feel their own creative oats and doing their own things, take pride in who they are and what they are doing. That integrity point, if we can build on that and spread that through the business world, entrepreneurship is a useful vehicle for doing so. Sometimes I think about mothers in this context here. We don't need to teach mothers ethics, right? Why is that? Don't take lessons about, getting all scolding with mothers about don't forget to feed your baby and don't forget to cover your baby right up and so forth. Mothers are extraordinarily committed to making their child's life the most beautiful and best life that it possibly can be, right? And why is that? Well, because the mother is the entrepreneur, so to speak, right, of the baby. She made it, right? It's hers. And because it came from her and it's hers, she wants to carry through as awesomely as she possibly can be. The same thing happens with artists, with their product. The same thing happens with real entrepreneurs who are creating a business. And I think that's an important point to stress. Education. A platitude, maybe, yes, but get people right when they are young, before they become jaded, before they become cynical. People, when they are young, they are, I think, naturalistically optimistic. They're naturally idealistic. They want their lives to be significant. They want their lives to be meaningful. And a big part of education is to help young people find their dreams, right? Find their own dreams, make their own dreams, to have the courage to follow through on their dreams, and to make sure that they have the skills that they need, the knowledge, the skill set, the character traits, and so forth that they need to do so. And so if we want to have healthy, happy people who are going to go on in their adult lives and do things that astonish themselves, astonish their parents, astonish the rest of us, if we think about the entrepreneurial skill set, right, that is going to serve any child no matter what profession he or she goes into, right? To be able to think creatively, to be able to exercise, despite dreaming, very hard critical judgment to sort out the good ideas from the bad ideas, to have the perseverance to carry through on long-term projects, to have tolerance for risk and to have the courage to face uncertainties, to deal with the ups and downs, to have the resilience to fall on your face and pick yourself up.